Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am recording this in fabulous, wonderful Escazú, Costa Rica, on Sunday, April 27th in the year 2025. And this is the last podcast of April because May begins this week. Can you believe it? I cannot. And so we are officially fully in Taurus season, and today is the new moon in Taurus, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, I want to speak to you about astrocartography. And the reason I want to talk about this is because it has gotten very popular. And as you may or may not know, I've been doing this for about 20 years. So when you come to me for an astrology session, you receive an astrocartography reading as part of the session. So we talk for an hour and a half, and part of that is devoted to astrocartography. Now, I get people coming who are mainly interested in that, and of course, I get people coming to me who aren't interested in that at all. And so the people who are not interested in that at all, we don't really get into it deeply. They're just like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I've been to Europe. Yeah, sure, whatever. And it's not a deep conversation about it. Many people are just curious or have traveled and want to know more about it. And then there are people who are really, really into it and really need it and are coming to me because they want to relocate. And I've noticed it's gotten very, very, very popular, especially on Instagram. I see a lot of ads and postings about astrocartography and locality, and I think that's great. I think it's amazing that people are becoming more aware of this and to use this tool. There are some, questionable posts, like I've seen this seemingly nice elderly gentleman saying, there's only 3 places in the world that are good for you to live. I don't believe that. I believe that what you call home is relative, and it's up to you and how you feel. There are people who are really happy on their Saturn line. There are people who are not necessarily happy on their Saturn line. I'm one of them. I was. But when we do this, okay, so I present 2 ways. As I just said, it's in a session. Whenever you get a session with me, we look at that. Unless you're coming for a repeat session, a new session. You've been to me already. We've done it already. You have no real interest in moving and that. Okay, then we don't really necessarily go over it again. However, the other offering I have are reports. And there's 3 cities. You choose the 3 cities and you get a report, okay, for each city. And that's $25 on my website. Many websites now have a feature where you order the astrocartography from their website, and you pick your city that you're interested in, and they give you a report. Now, back in the old days, when I had to, well, first of all, when I used to do charts by hand, and I'm showing my age, but I don't care, I had to do charts by hand because the computer software was not available to do this. And the primary source of this is relocational astrology. So if I relocate you, and I relocated you back then when I was doing them by hand, I had to do the whole chart for a brand new city in a different time zone. So if you're born in London at noon and you want a chart for New York, I've got to make the 5-hour time difference, right? Which would be, 7 a.m. And so that would put you in New York at 7 a.m. That's your relocated chart for New York. So this is important because what evolves from the relocated chart is the map. And we didn't have these maps before computers did astrology. Now, I would guess that there were a computer-generated astrology in the 70s. It wasn't popular for you to have it probably until like the 80s or 90s. And that's when we really started to see computer. Now, I don't think anybody does them by hand, but I think if you need to get a certification test, if you do that, they want to see you be able to do the calculations, which involve logarithm tables and all. Now, none of that bothered me because I have, as you probably know, a science degree and a math degree. And so with all of that chemistry and math under my belt, logarithm tables were already something I worked with. And so doing astrology charts was not a big deal for me. But it's good to understand how they get to what they get to when you have the whole chart. And there's other books. I had 3-4 different books that we had to go through to be able to look up charts and tables of houses and logarithm tables and everything to be able to create the chart. So right now, the way it is, if you've never done anything other than a computer generated chart for yourself, lucky you. So, and it's great. I mean, it's made my life so much easier. Now, the point of all of this is that we relocated a chart. If you moved from London to New York, we relocated your chart to New York. You still use your London chart, but we look at both. Now, what the map does, the map tells you what planetary lines wind up in certain places, and those are because of the angles of the chart. So you may move, if I looked at your map, if you're moving from London to New York and there's nothing in New York and I see nothing in New York, that means the angles of the chart, that's the ascendant, descendant, midheaven I see, they don't have planets on them, which means merely that there's not a whole lot drawing you there and happening for you in a place like that. Now, not everybody has a line in New York, and you may see that New York, you move from London to New York and it's not doing anything for you. You're just like, nah, this is all right. It's not amazing. I don't like this. It's not doing it for me. Nothing happens here for me. In New York, can you imagine? Well, things happen, but not what real things that touch your life. And so if you want a place that touches your life, you want the map to show you where the lines are. But they are like the aerial view. What you really need is the relocated chart. And this is why I'm discussing this right now. You can't just go on the map. And why you can't is because there are things going on in the chart that's generated after we look at the astrocartography map. And we look at the map as a point of entry. It's the tip of the iceberg. It's the interest. It's for the curious. You cannot do one without, you can't do the map without the chart. You can do the chart without the map, really, but you can't do the map without going deeper. If you're really considering moving, if you are changing your life and moving, you need to look at the relocated chart. If you're astro-curious and you want to see because you've traveled a lot and that place was special to me, it was wonderful when I was in Singapore, it was wonderful when I was in Australia. If you like those places and you want to see what it was like and why you felt that way, then by all means get astrocartography maps. If you are serious and need to move or getting a job offer or something, you need to look at the interpretation of the relocated chart, because the map does not tell all. You can have a wonderful, beautiful lines. You can have such fabulous lines. Say you're moving to New York and it puts Jupiter on your midheaven, and that's great. And it puts, or it puts Venus on your midheaven. But then it does something else. It puts, some planets in a place that is not going to give you a good experience of the place. So I may move to California because I've got Jupiter on my midheaven and then think that this is going to be an incredible opportunity for me. And in some ways it is. But if you open your chart, your relocated chart, and you find that the Sun and Venus are in the 12th house and the South Node is in the 4th, you are probably not going to reap the benefits of a big time social life there. You're going to want to stay home, be cozy with your book and your cup of tea, even though you've got Jupiter on the midheaven. That's, you're out when you're out and you're out working when you're out working, and then you want to go home and hide in your cave. So it depends on what you're looking for, and it depends on what the chart is telling you. Now, I'm always going to use myself as an example. When I was looking at Costa Rica, I looked at Costa Rica for how it changed the chart. And so I knew that I had the Sun and Mars here, but I also recognized that I had a change of houses. It changes the houses. It doesn't mean that, if you're an Aquarius like me and you move to California from London or something, you're moving to New York from London, that you're no longer an Aquarius. It means that you are now, maybe your Aquarius sun is in a different house, which is what it did for me. My Aquarius sun went from the 6th house to the 7th house. My ascendant stayed in Leo, but was much earlier in Leo, and then brought those planets up above the horizon and brought them to the descendant, which is why I have lines here. If I had nothing going on here, or if the chart looked bad here, I would pause before I moved here. If I had nothing going on here, there wouldn't have been lines here, and I would have been like, nah, all right, it wouldn't have resonated with me. And that's the thing. I tell people all the time, it has to resonate with you, and you have to like the place. You have to like the place. If you don't like the place, but it's your Venus line, but, I have a Venus sun here. Isn't that lovely? Yes, it's lovely, but if you don't like it, there could be Venus sun in a place that really does speak to you. And this is why we want to look at the entire thing. We want to look at the map. We want to look at the relocated chart. So this is my sermon for today, because I want people to realize this, because it's not just the map. You have to look deeper. If you want to move, maybe you're just curious. That's fine. You can look deeper still. But if you're serious about moving, or if you're serious about learning about your astrology in these places, and maybe just where you live, where you live may not be where you were born. If you're living where you were born, well then, then of course your whole life is wrapped around your natal chart. But if you move to San Francisco from Montreal, you are definitely going to have a big change in the way your chart is mapped out. So just putting that out there to let people know this, to come and get a more depth-oriented reading if you are really considering moving, because people don't realize this. So now that I've talked your ears off, let's get into what's going on right now. Today was the new moon. Today is the new moon, and it occurred. There was a lot today in this last week. Okay, so we've got the Mars-Pluto hangover, right? So the Mars-Pluto opposition was yesterday at 9:05 p.m. Eastern time, and it's part of this new moon. The new moon is at 7 degrees Taurus, but Mars and Pluto are at 3 degrees fixed. So Mars is in Leo, Pluto's in Aquarius. They're both at 3 degrees and change, and so the new moon plugs into that. It's past it. It's what we call separating. But the moon hit those planets this morning. Okay, so the moon squared Pluto, 9:16 a.m. Eastern time. The moon squared Mars, 9:38 a.m. Eastern time. And then it conjunct the sun at 3:31 p.m. Eastern time. Remember what I talked about last week, that there's this T-square between the sun, Mars, and Pluto. And last weekend, into Monday, the moon was part of that, as going into Aquarius. Well, now the moon has moved a quarter past where it was. It is now in Taurus, and it absolutely is in this thing with Mars and Pluto. So again, if you felt hot under the collar, if you felt irritated, if you are having conversations that are heated, this is something that really has to do with this configuration we've been living with for a week. Mars is still a little slow, so it took its time, but it squared, Mars and the sun squared last Sunday when we were on this podcast, and then the sun squared Pluto on Wednesday. And then today we have the sun and the moon conjunct. And yes, new moons in Taurus are fertile. They are asking us to take a new step forward. They are asking us what it is that we are considering new in our lives, and how this works for us, and what it feels like. And Taurus is a very stable sign. Okay, we like that. However, Taurus is also very stubborn. Taurus is also very fixed, and it doesn't necessarily, the whole new moon configuration isn't going to want to play nice with Mars and Pluto because Mars and Pluto are already agitated. So this is, again, heated. And so we've had this in place for the last week. And even though the moon triggered Pluto last Monday, it was, still the sun was really getting involved there and with Pluto and with Mars. And so it's been a heated week. And then just the whole notion of Pluto is that things are never the same after Pluto. Things change, life changes, stuff happens. The moon squaring Pluto today, the new moon squaring Pluto today is reminding us of that in some ways we've passed something and we're becoming aware of it. That we've passed something that we are not ever going back to. So things aren't going back to normal. Things aren't going back to the way they were. There were certain things this week that I experienced personally in my mostly personal and professional life that I can tell you they were definitively. I can see things that are not going back. They were Plutonian. The Pluto brings it up to your awareness, and now it's in your awareness, and it also told you that something's changed and something is changing. So this is the nature of right now. The trigger this week was, the Sun and Pluto. To my estimation, it was the Sun and Pluto, and that the new moon is still squaring it. The Sun squared it head on Wednesday the 23rd in the afternoon. And I certainly had a hot Wednesday. I mean, and I don't mean hot like woohoo hot. No, it was hot physically, and it was, because it's hot here right now. And but also, the conversations I had on Wednesday were I don't want to say earth shattering, but they were okay, we're not going back after this. This is where we're at. So in some ways, yes, it's good. There's good things. Well, okay, we're leaving that behind. Some things need to be left behind, and thankfully. But I really think that we all experienced something this week. Maybe you can put your finger on it that says, "Hey, we're not going back. That's it. We've seen the last of that." Or we reached a turning point and we have to go forward. And going forward is important, obviously, always. But I would say that each of us had something go on this week that showed us, okay, all right, things have changed, things have changed and permanently changed. They're not going to get better. And better is a strange word. It means it's going forward. It's going forward in a new way, and you're leaving something behind. There's a transition here. And if something was falling apart or deteriorating, then and you're seeing that, then it's not going back to the way it was. It's beyond repair. So maybe it's your car, maybe it's something in your house, maybe it's a relationship. So there are certain things I certainly experienced this week that were some of it very surprising, some of it not so surprising, some of it, thank God it's going to change, and some of it just was like, well, I'm really sorry has to happen, but this is the way it is. So we're all moving forward. It's got to be positive. Some things are not going to be as we want them to be, but Pluto makes irrevocable change. So going forward, this coming week, big things. First of all, Venus is going back into Aries. There you go. Venus is going back into Aries, 1:16 p.m. on Wednesday, the 30th, the last day of April. This is a moment we've been waiting for because, again, in this past week was Venus-Saturn. So the Venus-Saturn, coupled with all of that Sun, Pluto, Mars energy, was a little bumpy. It was a bumpy ride. And so we had to make some adjustments in our expectations last week. My German new medicine practitioner and I met on Wednesday also, and that was another thing. He said, you can't have expectations of people to do their job right. So that's why my back went out. I was like, I can't have expectations that people are going to do their job. Okay. He says, it's got to be up to you. If you're handling something, it's got to be up to you. The expectations are what got me in the end. So I was like, all right. So that's what he told me. So yeah, that was more fun news on Wednesday. So how do you expect someone to not do their job? I'm expected to do my job. Everybody else, I think, is supposed to do their job. All right. Venus is in Aries as of Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, the 30th. And all the experiences that we've had with Venus going into Aries, getting to about 10 degrees and turning around and going retrograde and then going back through Pisces, meeting with Saturn again, meeting with Saturn again, meeting with Saturn, 3 meetings with Saturn, and then Neptune. Venus is now finally going to get ready to go out of its shadow. And once it gets past 10 degrees of Aries, which is not this week, then it will definitely start to lighten up and we will move forward into a region of the zodiac that Venus has not been in a year. So it's something we've been looking forward to. So this is really good, right? So this is important. Venus steps into Aries. She does not love Aries, but it is important for her to go into Aries because it means that she is finally going to move out of the realm of Saturn, get away from Saturn, and really start to move her energy out of that conundrum of Saturn, okay? So the experience of Venus finally getting out of there isn't going to be until mid-month because she's still pretty slow. So I'm looking at my book right now, and it's about the 16th or so that she's going to get past that experience of retrograde shadow. Okay, so we've got another couple of weeks before Venus really comes out of that. And so it doesn't normally take Venus 2 weeks to travel 10 degrees, but she's still slow. Even though she went retrograde station direct from retrograde a couple weeks ago, she's really still slow. Okay, so it's going to take her another couple weeks. Then there's Mars. Mars is going to finally move out of its shadow on Saturday the 3rd. So it's going to finally be done with that area of the zodiac. This is such a relief, everybody. This is such a relief. Astro darlings, this has been since December, okay? And, this is really something that we've been really waiting for because Mars went direct February 23rd, and now we're approaching May. Okay, the shadow has gone on all of March, all of April, the last week of February, and now like this last part of April into May. How about that? This is profound. Okay, so this week we have some big movement. Even if it's been slow, it's significant. And it's something we want to pay attention to because Mars says, hey, I'm getting out of my shadow now. We're getting past everything that happened early December when abuelas in Costa Rica got eggnog thrown in their faces. Rompope thrown in their faces, right? So back on that day, half an hour after Mars went retrograde. That's a Mars retrograde I'll never forget. So we'll see if somebody's like offering rompope or something on Saturday the 3rd. I doubt it because it's not that time of the year, but it's taken us nearly half the year for Mars to get out of that. I mean, this is incredible. This is incredible. So now 2025 can start, okay? Now it can finally begin. We can finally feel like we're actually taking steps forward and we're moving away from 2024. So congratulations, everybody. We're moving forward like halfway through the year. So that's Venus and that's Mars. Then Venus is going to meet with Neptune again. And so Venus met with Neptune back in like February, turned around, went retrograde in March, met with Neptune again back, a while later, and then went back into Pisces, so that wasn't really in March. But this is the third time that Venus is going to meet with Neptune. Now, it met she met with Saturn 3 times already. The last time was Thursday. And after the 2 times she's met with Neptune, they were both in Pisces. Both times, Venus and Neptune were in Pisces, in the place that they both love. Neptune rules Pisces. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Now she's meeting Neptune on Friday, the 2nd of May, and that will be at 1:07 p.m. Eastern Time. They're conjunct, but they're in Aries. They are no longer in their favorite sign. Venus is really not in her favorite sign. So this is going to be a different level of story. It's still the beauty of Venus and Neptune coming together in that very special, significant way. It's really the beauty of Venus and Neptune intuitively, sensitively, creatively, in that juicy Venus-Neptune, but she's just got a little kick to it because it's in Aries. Now, I find this interesting. Again, remember what I said about today's new moon. It's ruled by Venus. It's in Taurus. This is another big Venus week. So we're starting the week with a Venus-ruled new moon. And remember 2 weeks ago when we had the full moon, that full moon was also ruled by Venus because it was in Libra. So there's a lot of Venusian elements happening here about beauty, about love, about money, and about creativity, and about, this is about unconditional love. And the interesting thing is they are in Mars's sign. Mars rules Aries, and Mars is reaching the point where he is no longer in his shadow, while Venus and Neptune are coming together in his sign. I think this is important. There's something very balance of the polarities, the masculine, the feminine, the Venus, the Mars, the Venus rather, masculine, feminine. But Mars is moving out of its shadow just as these two planets are coming together in Aries, Mars' sign. This has all been very tied in with each other. The eclipses were tied in with Mercury and Venus because of the points they were at. They were connected to the retrogrades because Venus and Mercury were both retrograde. The stations of those planets, everything keeps sort of enveloping and folding on top of itself. And so now again, as Venus makes its last conjunction with Neptune after 3 times, it's coming at a time when it's in Aries, no longer in Pisces. This is different than the Saturn thing because Saturn was in Pisces the whole time and Venus met with Saturn 3 times in Pisces. And so we're finished. That last conjunction of Venus and Neptune is the last time Venus and Neptune will conjunct in Pisces in our lifetime. Okay? Venus will be through Pisces. Neptune's not going to Pisces again. So now they're going to be conjuncting in Aries, and this is the first conjunction of Venus and Neptune in Aries in our lifetime because Neptune's never been in Aries before. So now, by the time next year, Neptune will go back into Pisces for a bit, but Venus won't be there at the same time. She's a little slower now that she went retrograde. She won't be there. Neptune will pass it, go back into Aries, stay in Aries, and Venus will only follow later. So now we're starting a brand new cycle. This Friday, Venus and Neptune conjunct in Aries. This is where their conjunction will be for the next decade plus. Okay? So this is powerful. This is a whole dynamic that's different. This is a cardinal sign, not a mutable sign. This is not where Venus and Neptune want to necessarily be. Venus is not in her best place there, but she's va-va-voom. She's sexy. She's Spitfire. But she's meeting with Neptune and starting a brand new Venus-Neptune cycle. They will always meet in Aries for a long, 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 long time. Okay? So this is it. Now, it's ruled by Mars. This is an interesting dynamic because Mars is now in control of this. So I find this fascinating, and we're going to see what this energy is like, how it's different. Maybe she's going to be soft and romantic, but in a very, sexy way. And maybe she's going to be in her element with Neptune in that very beautiful, intuitive way, but also like with an edge, And the other big thing that's happening this week, which is actually next Sunday, a week from today, and when we have this podcast again, Pluto will go retrograde. It will be 11:27 a.m. Eastern Time next Sunday. Pluto will turn retrograde at 3 degrees plus of Aquarius. Now, what's interesting about this is that this is the first time that Pluto is going retrograde in Aquarius and not going back into Capricorn. Okay? No more Capricorn for Pluto. We're going straight through Aquarius. So it's going to go backwards until October, and then it will go forward in Aquarius. It'll stop in Aquarius. It'll go forward in Aquarius. It's not going back. Last year, when Pluto went retrograde this time of year, it was heading through Aquarius, but it took till September for it to go back into Capricorn for the last time till November 19th. And so this is very interesting. We're in Aquarius to stay with Pluto. So it's not like the other guys that are going to be retrograding and going back into the former sign and then stepping into the new one permanently like Pluto did last year. So this is it. Pluto's in Aquarius to stay for now, and we are going to experience this real dynamic of Pluto going backwards into Aquarius, through Aquarius, and staying there. Now, Pluto retrograding is giving us the ability to stop and process and work through some things that we have experienced since November 19th, right? Pluto was direct and moving in Aquarius at that point. You know, it was direct for a little while at that point, but it's been processing this whole section of Aquarius, these first 3.5 degrees or so of Aquarius. And now we get to really work with where we've been in these months, where we've had this process happening, where we've gone in these months and what we want to do. Okay? What's come up for you? What changes are occurring that are new and bringing you to something maybe innovative? What changes are occurring that are things you didn't expect? You know, Aquarius is a little bit of the unexpected because of that Uranian nature. What qualities of your life have changed, and where do you need to kind of regroup about them? You know, some of the things that happened last week: Mars and Pluto, Sun, Mars and Pluto, Sun and Mars, Sun and Pluto, you know, the moon, the new moon, everything between the sun, the moon, Mars, and Pluto that's happened in the last week. It's been really intense. And we have now the opportunity to process what all of that was about. We have the ability to work on what we've learned, especially in this last week. So before Pluto goes retrograde next weekend, we've gotten a whole bunch of information, and I think new information. Each of us has gotten something new, or remember what I said, Pluto, it's irreparable. Things have changed, and you've realized things have changed, and they've changed for good. And so you've got to see what was it that changed for good, and now you're going to go sort of process all of that. Like, wow, I didn't think that was going to change for good. Wow, okay. All right, I got to go work this through. The thing that's important about this is that we recognize what area of our life this is affecting and how we are going to move forward in it. What is it that's been brought to your attention? The other thing is, if you've been waiting for something to change, maybe you got the information about it changing this past week. Maybe something's been taking so long. You've been waiting to change jobs, get a promotion, move home, something, or a situation to break. And I think that when you get a situation that finally breaks, the information comes forward, there's been a breakthrough, and hopefully there's been a breakthrough. You know, while things may have been irreparable, there may be breakthroughs in that. And certainly that was the case with me, certainly. That's what I experienced this past week. If you are feeling that breakthrough that finally needed to happen, well, hey, Pluto retrograde now is going to let you assimilate all of that. And this is what we have to do. So it's like, okay, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready that the universe is going to finally help me along here, and we're going to assimilate all of this, and this is a good thing. we're gonna see what's on the other side of this breakthrough. And what's interesting is, like I said, you might be waiting for something to change, nothing stays the same forever. Nothing. Something somewhere changes. Somehow it changes. It's always going to break. If you don't know how something's going to work out, you're going to keep going at it until you finally get an answer to that. So, well, I'm either going to get a promotion or I'm changing jobs. Okay, if that's what's going to happen, if you're like, if they pass me over for promotion this time, I got to look for another job. And suddenly you get your answer. It's not like you're going to be waiting forever in this loop and you're never going to get an answer to that. You are going to get an answer to that. Well, okay, they passed me over again. I'm going to start looking for another job. Well, somebody called me before they even did the promotions and said, hey, I think you might like this job. And I'm going to go look at it. So this is the kind of thing. If you've been concerned about your career or something in your life that's taking a long time, those moments may have come to a head this past week. And so nothing stays in forever. It never stays that way. Something changes somewhere, There are cycles, there are seasons. Winter doesn't last forever. Summer doesn't last forever. We have to acknowledge where that may be and what we need to do next, if it requires action or if it requires, a different level of patience or something else. Here in Costa Rica, the Poás volcano has been emitting smoke, like big clouds of smoke, and that's kind of far from me. It's not like 4 hours away from me, but if you drive an hour up the mountain, yeah, you'll get there. A lot of the places around there have been closed. I thought it was so relevant to what was happening with Mars and Pluto and the sun. I thought, oh my God, what could be more of a metaphor than a volcanic eruption? It was really a smoke eruption. It wasn't really like lava and flames and fire and sparks and hot things flying into the sky. It was just smoke, which means it was hot, but it wasn't like those big orange pieces and chunks coming out of the volcano. So it's active. The volcano is active. So the active volcano started this week, and a lot of places up there had to close. You can't go see the volcano. I went on my tour when I came here in 2016. We went up to Poás. We couldn't see the crater because it was so cloudy. And this is the thing with volcanoes. If you want to see them, their heads are in the clouds. Even volcanoes have their heads in the clouds. So yeah, this was one of those things where the volcano is playing out the astrology, the Mars, Pluto, Sun. So those are hot planets, and that's a hot volcano. So I thought it was very interesting. And so that was our metaphor of the week. So that is our week ahead. We really do have some hot energy as Venus now moves into Aries. She's out of Pisces. Saturn's going to take a little while longer to leave, and the North Node's there for a while. So with this Venus-Saturn North Node, oh yes, and the Pope passed away, that at the end of the zodiac, that is very much about, Christianity, some Christian symbol. The Pope passing away was it was definitely the end of a big cycle with Venus, with the North Node, with Saturn. So that was kind of like, aha, there's the astrology again in the news. Astrology. We used to talk about that back in the days when I was studying advanced astrology with Michael Luton, 20 some odd years ago. He would say, okay, where's the astrology in the news? And this would have been, he would have been all over this one, talking about the Pope passing away at this very Christian area of the zodiac where, it's about the sacrifice and it's about the letting go and the release. So yes, that was a big deal this week. So volcanoes, Christianity, it's like biblical proportions out there right now. Thank you so much for listening. We went a little bit over today, but that's because I really wanted to get in that piece about astrocartography, because I think there is some confusion, and it doesn't begin and end with the map that you see and the things that you're seeing on Instagram. That's the tip of the iceberg. If you're serious about moving, if you're just curious, look at the map. You just find out what's there, and this is what's available out there. So go deeper if you need to. Astrology can go levels and levels and levels deep, as far as deep as you want to go. So remember that in your pursuits towards a new life, whether it's moving or just transformation. Thank you for listening. Gratitude to everyone. This is the last April podcast. Next time I see you, it will be May. In the meantime, if you'd like an astrology session with me and you want to know where all these things are happening, please go to my website, thegoldenastrologer.com. Click Book Now in my profile, Book Online in my profile. Book Now is in Instagram. Instagram's The Golden Astrologer. Website's goldenastrologer.com. And you can book a session either way. But on my website, you can get a better read on what it is that I do and how I work and what's available. You can get Reiki sessions from me. You can join me in expansion mentoring. You can join me in an astrology session. You can do a card reading with me. So we have all sorts of goodies on my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, that you are welcome to take a journey through. I wish you a beautiful week. May you have a breakthrough as Pluto turns retrograde. I will see you on the retrograde station day of Pluto. Gratitude to each and every one of you for listening. Have a beautiful, blessed week.